Why are we still getting fatter? We have access to more information right now than we have ever had in human history. There's gyms on every corner, there's millions of personal trainers, there's the NHS guidelines, there's slimming clubs. Social media is filled with millions of gurus. There is literally something for everybody. But why do we still continue to gain weight? Now, it's easy to point the finger at what seems to be the obvious go-to. Oh, there's more fast food, oh, cars, we don't walk as much. And yes, those things are part of the reason, but I'm going to say there's one huge reason that not many people's talking about, and it might just be one of the biggest factors of them all. So as we know, obesity rates in the UK and around the world have exploded in the last 100 years. And it's not that difficult to see. If you were to look at some old video footage from say 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you would see very few people who were walking around visibly overweight. Your parents' generation, your grandparents' generation, they didn't seem to have the problems that we do now. So why is it that we continue to gain the weight? I was watching an old World War II documentary recently, and it was about all the young men that got drafted into the war from the UK, and they went into training, and it looked like they had all been training all their life. They were all in amazing shape. They were all doing the sprints, they were doing the push-ups. They were all very naturally fit, and there wasn't anyone that was overweight. Nowadays, if the same thing was to happen and we were all to get called up, I don't know how many people would be able to run a mile, do 20 push-ups in a row. We would all struggle with that nowadays. So what is the real reason why 64% of the whole of the UK are either overweight or obese? Let's look at that right now. So let's address the obvious reasons. These are the things that we all know, and we can all point the finger and say, that's why. And one of the obvious ones, as I said in the introduction, is going to be fast food is just all over the place. We didn't evolve having access to food 24/7, 365 days a year. Food was something that we had to go out and earn or find, and it was a tough thing for us to do physically and mentally. We would probably go through periods of long fasting where we wouldn't have access to food, hard winters where we'd go days or weeks without getting anything or surviving on the bare essentials. Now you're lucky if you can go 2 hours without eating a wee biscuit. Food is just so easily accessible now. Not to mention the foods that are less than ideal for us tend to be cheaper as well, so it means that we're naturally inclined to go that way. And if you wanted to go a wee bit more sinister than that, these foods are engineered by scientists in a lab to make it so that we can't say no to it. We're literally a byproduct of extreme manipulation where these foods and scientists have hacked our biology, so we struggle to say no. It becomes an addiction. And it's something I don't hear talked about too much. You hear all the time people are addicted to drink, drugs, alcohol, porn, whatever it is, but you very rarely hear someone, I'm addicted to food, I can't stop. On top of easily mass-produced, ultra-processed foods, we are so sedentary nowadays. We have cars that drive us everywhere, so we very rarely have to walk. We have escalators and lifts, so we don't even have to climb stairs. Every physical thing that we once upon a time had to have done has been made easier nowadays by just modern technology. And most people in the UK are struggling to hit between 3,000 and 5,000 steps a day, where even a generation ago, that was probably double. And we're in a time in history that we've always wanted to get to, a time where just comfort is everywhere. We don't even have to go out the house to get fast food. We can get it delivered. And again, modern technology just makes everything in our life easier. We don't have to worry when winter comes. We can turn on the heating. We can drive everywhere. We don't even have to handwrite a letter anymore. We can just pull out our phones and text someone on the other side of the world. Life is just so much easier than it used to be. So yes, all of these things compounding together are obvious, aren't they? We all know that at some level. But there's one thing that's missing, and it's something deeper that's driving people's eating habits. And it's not all about the food, it's why we eat the food. Nowadays, people aren't just eating because they're hungry. They eat because they're stressed, they're lonely, they're bored, they're depressed, they're coping with a busy life, they're filling a void. Basically, most people nowadays are turning to food as a form of comfort because they feel that they're missing something in their life. And food becomes one of the easier escapes because of what we spoke about before, because it's so easily accessible. More than ever, people are feeling stuck, they're trapped, they're doing work that doesn't fulfill them. They might have so much going on in their day that eating a cookie or eating a takeout is the one thing that brings them a wee bit of joy and gets a wee dopamine hit every day. Now you might be sitting there going, mental health, it's not that important. But as someone who's worked with people struggling with their mental health, people who can't even get out of the bed, can't even get out of the house, everything becomes a struggle. And even though you might hear about these people very rarely, everyone struggles with their mental health. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be bedridden or you have to be absolutely depressed or going suicidal to be struggling with your mental health. People can still struggle with anxiety, with being low, with being depressed, with being bored and lonely, and are very high functioning. So picture the scene, you wake up, you hit snooze 4 times, you're running late, the kids are screaming, so you have to put something real quick for breakfast, which is going to be something highly ultra processed, no doubt. Something like cereal with milk, or a bit of bread with some jam or some Nutella on it, just for quickness. The person we're talking about has no time for themselves, no time to get some natural sunlight, no time to exercise, not even a spare 5 minutes to stretch, because they've snoozed so much they're running late for work, so they have to rush out the door. Stress levels are already amplified, they're late to work, they get a bollocking from their boss. Work is difficult, work is boring, work is tedious. Maybe they've done that job for 5, 10, 20 years and they're feeling so unfulfilled. They don't go for the promotion because they think, ugh, what's the point? Life is all right the way it is, so why strive for something different? They're driving home from work deflated, unmotivated. Every road that they drive down has takeaways on every corner. So to make themselves feel a bit better, they jump in, they grab a whole family-sized bucket, they take her up the road, they sit down in front of the TV with the kids, eating the bucket. They sit back going, oh, I need to do it all tomorrow, it's only Monday. Now, I'm not saying looking after your family and going to work by any means is a miserable existence, but a lot of people nowadays struggle with a bigger picture, bigger motivation, bigger drivers, and they end up complacent and letting themselves go and going to food for comfort because it's the only thing in their day that makes them feel good. Now, this isn't something that's just tied to people with really severe mental health problems. I see this day to day with my clients that I work with who are just ordinary people living ordinary lives, and they just feel very low and they're struggling with their motivation, they're struggling with their images, they're struggling to find that deeper meaning in life. Now, I'm not saying I'm here to solve that problem by any means, but in my experience, having something to work towards, having a goal or something to strive towards gives people that uplift that they need and that they've not been getting. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go and cure cancer or solve world hunger. It could literally be as simple as working on yourself. And on top of all of that, we can start looking at other coping strategies. Right now, food is people's go-to coping strategy, as I said, to make them feel better, to get that wee boost in dopamine. One thing that I can already see having an impact, and one thing that's becoming bigger and bigger every single year in the UK, is a shift to focus on people's mental health and to give them different coping strategies away from the things like drugs, alcohol, and food. And hopefully with more people looking to make a change in their weight, they also take into account their mental health and how the two are linked. By improving one, you improve the other. So it's a win-win all around. So yes, of course, we've got the obvious things like the comforts of modern day living, fast food being hyper available and hyper palatable, but it isn't always about the food. It's about how we feel within ourselves and within the world that we live in. And nowadays, even though we're all connected via social media and the world is so small a place now, it's also a very lonely place and it's a very difficult world for people to survive in. And even though the answers are out there in abundance, if you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't even know what the problem is, you're going to find it very difficult to find it because you're going to be focusing on all of the wrong things. And as much as this might seem totally outlandish, the proof is in the pudding. It's why the obesity rates keep climbing despite how easy life is just now and despite how much information and help is available to the general population. So there's definitely something here, and I feel like we all have to become more aware of ourselves, our own mental health, and our families as well. And it just starts by being aware and looking to manage our coping strategies by finding something else to focus on. Now, I'm not saying by any means this is going to be an easy journey for people, but at the very least, you can't make a difference if you're not aware of it. So hopefully this video brings some sort of awareness to a larger issue at hand. And if you found this video useful and you're on the journey to losing weight and to becoming a better version of yourself, this video here is going to give you a new way to think about fat loss.